Hello everyone and welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, video games are gay. Or at least that's what AndyPants is going on about. And it's part 2 where he discusses what the hell is going on in the gaming industry over the past 20 years or so. Obviously, as part 1 was very similar. Figured we'd double back, check this out. We got a lot of kickback because of our perspective last time. Let's see what happens this time. So let's just get into it. For those that have been appreciating the content, please consider subscribing as it does help a lot. A little bit of a disclaimer. This man rage baits from time to time. So he's going to say some things, but I think we'll be all right. I'm a little bit of a gamer myself, so I'm kind of interested to see how this goes.
All right, if you're here from Reddit, you might need to change your tampon for this one. Boys, all I'm trying to figure out is how we went from games like this.
I just lost my fucking brother, all right? You hear that? My brother. You and your tower and all this fucking emotion can go to hell.
Dad, I really do.
Here, you point it in that direction, and you pull this to make it go bang.
Listen, do I come to your job and tell you how to murder civilians?
What?
No. So don't come to my job and tell me how to do mine.
I swear to you, Centurion, Rome will not fall. Not today. Today, we fight.
To whatever the hell this is in 2025.
Yep.
Can somebody explain to me why everything everywhere has to be gay now? Can I go 2 seconds without some degenerate, non-binary, Hello Kitty-ass nonsense in my face telling me how their husband's boyfriend transitioned? I'm sorry if this hurts your fifis, but you can't be gay and masculine. Gayness and masculinity are opposites. Get mad. Get real mad. When I was first getting into Xbox in 2001, every game was about war and about being a Chad. Now every game seems like it was made by women and dudes with weak arms. If you look back at the 2000s, we really had everything. Dante and Devil May Cry, an absolute unit. GTA, Yakuza, Metal Gear, Chad of War, Uncharted, SOCOM. Then the Xbox was more shooter-focused. Halo, Call of Duty, Gears, Brothers in Arms, Splinter Cell. Last year, I made a video called The Pussification of Video Games, and you can consider this part 2 to that video. I want to give you some fresh examples of the pussification of modern video games and how this happened. You guys are probably tired of me talking about Red Dead 2 and Last of Us constantly, so I'm going to try to throw in some fresh examples. In this video, we're going to take a look at Spider-Man 2 and the cuckoning of Peter Parker, Ubisoft and the downfall of Rainbow Six, and finally, Immortals of Avium, Army of Two, and a couple single-player games. One of the most egregious examples of the demasculinization of a man is 2023's Spider-Cuck 2, exclusively on the PS5.
Is it just me, or does it seem like Spider-Man is a pretty bad base of masculinity? I don't know. I feel like there's so many Marvel heroes out there that could have been based off of. Like, you know, Captain America, Hulk, I don't know, the Iron Man, Punisher, Wolverine. I don't know. It just seems like there's so many characters that could have been a better direction, but I think it's mainly because these are the latest games. Perhaps that's a little strange. But when it comes down to the whole concept of this influx and identity politics in the gaming it's a little strange. It's a little alarming. If you were to gauge the average male gamer and who that actually represents, I promise you it's not some person that's flaunting virtue signaling of identity politics. It's just some regular dude that's trying to engage in some escapism. And whenever they have politics flooded into the thing that they're using as their vehicle for escapism, it just seems off. And it's not something that they want to be a part of. And that's why also video games that have that as their focus don't do well. And so they have to flood it into successful IPs in order to make it work. Now, why are corporate interests hell bent on doing so? It's hard to say, but I can tell you that they don't give a damn about the groups they're trying to represent. I think it's just a matter of being on that hype wave that existed where it's like, oh, look, we're all inclusive. Look at us. We're so inclusive. Come join us and look how all we evolve here. But they don't give a damn about you. They don't give a damn about your sexuality. They don't give a damn about your identity. And the concept of you can't be masculine and gay. I mean, if we really broke down those two terms, I'm pretty sure he, like I said before, is that he's using the term gay as a reference of being extremely soft and light themed. Now, because otherwise, the idea of sexuality and masculinity is obviously going to be a little different. Now, are there some themes in those orientations that don't blend well? Yeah, I would say that, because it's hard to be a protector and provider to another man. So that's a little, I see something there. But my issue is corporate interests. Was it a government move, federally funded? We've seen what USAID has been doing in other countries to enable more and more kinds of propaganda. It's a little strange, considering that a lot of the trans representation is for this fraction of our population. So it's very interesting that seems to be the focus in reference to our own country. It's just I see the problem with it, but let's keep it going.
Spider-Man 2018 was much more of a 2000s game. Peter was the hero of his own story. This is why I bought a box that says Spider-Man on it. I want to play as a superhero. But oh, you bigoted white man. Insomniac Games is going to get you to pay $80 to watch your hero get cucked. And we all fell for it. This is why, by the way, I always say Sony is just as bad and just as woke as Xbox. Now look, just to be clear, I have no issue with Miles Morales as a character, and I have no issue with black characters in games. Final Fantasy VII, Gears, Walking Dead, all great games. What we take issue with is that Spider-Man 2 is supposed to be a story about Peter,
representation.
Being a superhero. This is why I bought the game. Instead, we play a game in which MJ and Miles Morales are the heroes. They are constantly saving Peter because they are faster, smarter, stronger, and more competent than Peter throughout the entire game. In literally every boss battle in Spider-Man 2, Peter is either rescued by Miles or rescued by ugly-ass girl boss MJ. Peter is depicted throughout Spider-Man 2 as childish, vengeful, and impotent. Miles, in every instance, is shown as more competent, more wise, more moral, and just a better person in general.
I can't let this go. I'm finally everything everyone needs me to be.
Yeah, you don't even answer my calls anymore, man. And what about MJ? You could have killed her! I know you're hurting, Pete, but you're better than this!
I know, but...
This is what the woke activists at Insomniac believe, though. They fetishize black people and say that black people are inherently better and more moral than white people. It's the most insane anti-white propaganda you'll ever see in a game. Insomniac Studios hates white
people. A couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, even 4 years ago, would say that, we're not too sure that's exactly what's happening. But as we started to see the themes and the patterns, it pointed more and more towards white people bad. White people deserve more than other races. They deserve more scrutiny, or the idea that you can't be racist to white people. You're so stupid. Have you seen the list of races? Guess what? If you discriminate against any of those on the basis of race, you're being a racist. So I think the argument of you can't be racist towards white people went away, and now it's turning into it's okay to be racist against white people in general. And I think that's really what it's devolving to. And going back to some form of segregation off culture based off of identity divide is just stupid to me. And it just seems like it's being perpetuated more and more. And the one in the group that I see guilty of this more than anything is leftist media outlets. They love throwing in race and gender into damn near everything. I'm sure we could see it on both sides, but we're talking about who are the biggest accusers of this. And whether you agree with me or not, you can look it up yourself and we can crunch the numbers. Talk to me in the comments if you want to.
People. In their second big encounter with a boss, Peter is unable to beat Venom. Miles comes in and easily beats Venom's ass. Just for fun, I asked AI, why was the symbiote able to possess Peter and not Miles? The answer was hilarious. Because Peter was mentally weak and Miles is mentally strong.
Word.
You can't make this stuff up. Throughout the game, Peter Parker is shown as someone who needs to be saved, easily dominated by the symbiote, and driven by revenge. Also, throughout the game, Miles is shown as perfect, without any flaws, never motivated by
Imagine if wisdom was based on race. That'd be crazy, right? Damn.
revenge, and always the virtuous and moral good one. I get that a character with no flaws is boring, but why did Peter have all the flaws in his own game while Miles had none? But guys, this is what happens when you let satanic, homo, LGBTQ propagandists like the entire staff of Insomniac make a game. You get anti-white, anti-male propaganda like Spider-Man 2. Oh,
This is going to be a little bit of a tough one. Now, the way he's going to paint it out and portray it is women who have these ideologies are bad. But I guess the science behind it is in previous game developer studios, it was a bunch of men. It was a bunch of men because this was the interest of men. And that's not to say that women didn't exist at all in these environments, but they were the exception to the rule, proving the rule exists. Now, when you get a bunch of men that have an interest or a hobby like video games as a way to make a living, or that's something they want to pursue, you're going to get a lot of locker room talk. My question to everybody is, does locker room talk exist when women are in the room? 9 times out of 10, no. Men are far less comfortable talking about the things when it's just men. And it's the same basis for women. So we can't really say that this is some kind of crazy thing. It happens on both sides. The thing is that when it comes down to the interests of men, because that was the average gamer, believe it or not, it matters. Because everyone's in likeness of what they know the player base would want more of. So you're going to get those kind of themes, locker room talk themes, if you will. When you start involving women, not only are you concerned of offending women, but you start to shift the priorities and the priorities of focus. So because women are in the room or women are part of certain things, you're less likely to criticize them. And women are less likely to criticize themselves because, not in the sense of personal criticism, but each other, because they are more covertly competitive. It is far more subtle, so it's never going to be out in the open. And if we have reduced forms of criticism and we have more compassion and concepts of how do we involve everybody in everything and be comfortable and feel good, well, you can tell that there might be a shift of focus and a shift of outcome. We might start focusing on how to make everyone comfortable and less about how to demonstrate someone conquering something in a stoic fashion, for that matter. Because that's going to be a harder thing to reach where we're more focused on not criticizing each other and focusing on concepts like compassion. That's where toxic compassion or toxic positivity comes into play, where no one can really shoot each other's ideas down. Everything is just incredible. So green light everything. And then this is what the people receive. And then when they get all this feedback, like, no, this is terrible. Why are you putting these politics in my game? Why did you change this? Why did this happen? It's like, oh, they're just bigots and racists, and that's why that feedback exists. It's like, no, you could have had that feedback in these committees, but you had to give everyone a say, and no one wanted to criticize each other because everyone wants to just be liked. And it creates this terrible avenue to develop video games. And I think the more people you have in that kind of process, the worse it gets, and the more convoluted it gets, the more jumbled and confusing it gets. And I think that plays a huge part, man.
Oh, and if you think the Wolverine game isn't going to be ultra woke, you are coping hard, my friend. So let's look at Spidey 1 now. While it would be a stretch to call Spider-Man 2018 based, I think it's true that Spidey 1 is a pro-male game, while Spidey 2 is very much an anti-white and anti-male game. In the 2018 game, Mary Jane is more attractive. Peter actually saves MJ several times in the first game, the way God intended it. Men saving women because this is what we are made to do, and we have bigger arms than them. MJ still plays a role in Spidey 1, but she's just a reporter.
People still hung up on the biological differences of men and women. Y'all are just going to have to take that L and just keep on going. Come on. Like I'm sure there's several different arguments that you could take up than say, no, men and women are capable of exactly the same thing. It's just like, at what point are we going to go towards an argument that's worth having and stop having arguments that are on the basis of quick victories and things that we just want to feel better about? It's like, damn, man. Because it orients back to the whole necessity for girl boss. The whole basis of girl bosses in these games is on the premise that a woman's success is exactly like a man's success. No, it's not. Why do people have a hard time portraying feminine success? Why is it always portrayed in a masculine manner? Because you yourself don't know how women are successful, because we have lost the concept of that gender role, it seems, because the only term of success that we want to glorify is a man's success. Why did we lose sight of glorifying a woman's success, and why don't we focus on that now? It's the same reason. People are very scared to walk that path, we'll say.
Working in her own way instead of being a girl boss and trying to usurp Peter's male authority. Peter faces off and defeats Martin Lee, and then later on his own friend, mentor, and role model, Dr. Octopus. In the game's final moments, the villains unleash Devil's Breath on the city, and Peter must decide whether to save the people of New York or save his own flesh and blood, Aunt May. In a moment of heroic sacrifice, Peter chooses to save the city over Aunt May, who is essentially like his own mother. Despite a couple of woke things in it, Spidey 2018 is an amazing game, and it's about the heroic sacrifices we must make in order to become men. Too bad they completely cucked Peter Parker and made him a mouthpiece for gay propaganda in 2023's Spider-Man 2. Moving on. Does anybody remember the OG Rainbow Six games on PS2 and Xbox, and then later on 360 and PS3? Bro,
I didn't play this.
So badass.
I'm
a strong believer that all I need
knew
to
they
do
were
is
there,
listen to the
but
menu music of a game, and it
it
tells me everything about the game I need to know.
Yeah, it's going to be some like militant music, you know? This was
Also,
the norm.
Look at these covers, dude. Squad-based counter-terror, my dude. This was the plot for Rainbow Six Lockdown. In 2009, Rainbow, led by John Clark, deploys the Alpha Team, commanded by Ding Chavez, to rescue the South African president from a rebel army surrounding Pretoria. Elsewhere in the city, the Global Liberation Front, an anti-Western left-wing terrorist organization led by Bastian Vanderwall, steals Legion, a nanite aerosol bioweapon that causes massive hemorrhaging and has a 100% fatality rate. Like, dude, that sounds like a game I want to play, and pretty much all of the Rainbow Six games had plots kind of like this. Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2 are the ones most people are familiar with. Terrorist Hunt was very fun, as was the multiplayer. These games weren't like Call of Duty at all. If you just rushed in and started firing, you and your whole team would die immediately. You had to carefully breach doors. You were able to set your guys up on multiple doors at once so you could attack targets from multiple angles at once, which would lead to much fewer fatalities. So what happened to Rainbow Six? Well, gay-ass Six Siege happened. Rainbow Six Siege came out in 2015, and it's a gay game where you could blow off some steam with the girls at the end of a long day.
Oh, nice.
So like 50% of the operators in Siege are women. Boys, out of the probably 200 operators in Rainbow Six games from 1998 to 2008, do you know how many were women? Like 2 out of 200. And that's actually realistic. In real life, in the real world of PMCs, it's maybe like 1% women in combat roles. So immediately,
well, in a lot of cases, the only reason the women were there is because they were going to be able to handle female victims of any sort too, and that's the only reason that they were placed in that, because they were a necessity to be able to handle the female populace. Now, if we were to gauge this on a realistic basis, it's very interesting that this is what people care about, because if we're talking about escapism, then we're trying to embrace a fantasy. But I think the reason why it does make sense, and it's not like, well, if you're trying to escape to a fantasy, then why do you care about something that's real, realistic? Well, the more relatable the environment, the easier it is to immerse yourself, or at least in some cases. So I think that what people are trying to accomplish is they're trying to immerse themselves through escapism by engaging in an alternate reality that is relatable, that they can enjoy and be a part of in order to escape the hardships that they might be dealing with at the time. And so when we start adding in a bunch of things that doesn't make sense or isn't relatable, it does crumple that immersion a little bit. And I think that's what gets in the way of the average gamer, or the person that wants the environment that they're escaping to be a little more relatable. And I think that's really where it comes from, because if we were to gauge it by realistic standards, no, if you had an elite lethal team, women would never be on that team. It sounds like an absolute, but that's only on the basis because to imply that a woman made that team means that there were several men that couldn't compete with her physically. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's not the case. Let's go ahead and move past the degrading and regressive argument that men and women are equally strong. or at least are as strong as one another. Come on, stop it.
Get some help.
This isn't going to be it. Now, obviously, we're in a technological society. We feel like the need for those kind of differences aren't as a requirement anymore. I would beg to differ, because the second that anything is a necessity of force, it's going to matter. I guess it still kind of blows my mind that we're still stuck up on a trivial debate of men and women and who's stronger. Come on, man. It's just so.
Really, what we saw with Six Siege and the fact Angela Bassett was their commander now is a pussification and a gayification and a homoification of the entire Rainbow Six series.
Damn.
But nobody cares, and you have brain-rotted Zoomers just eating this game up and still playing.
I mean, it's their identity. It's this, like, the reason why they had to flood this into already successful IPs is because they know that by itself it cannot stand. So you got to flood it in. Now, why? Tinfoil hat on, corporate interest, government fucking propaganda. Who knows as to what this astroturfed stuff is? But the point is that it's happening nonetheless, and because it's their IP, they just want to play the game. And I think the reality of it, regardless of AndyPants knows this or not, a lot of people just don't care, man. A lot of people just don't fucking care. They don't care. And it's like not too much of a big deal, but for the people that it does bother, it's on the basis that it's like, well, that doesn't really make sense, but I'll still play because I like this game. And should they voice their opinions, I think you find an alarming percent would say they didn't like it, but they didn't care enough. And I think that's typically the answer. And so they're going to continue. It's not that they're going to protest every little form of gender ideology that's thrown into one of their hobbies. And I think the argument of why does it matter to care about it, or why bother reacting to it? It's not a big deal. Who cares if it's there? It's like, okay, well, my question to you is, why does it matter that it's there at all? If it doesn't matter, why add it? If it doesn't matter, why input it? If it's not a big deal, why involve it? Clearly, there's a necessity for one thing or the other. You're getting a reaction from people, which means your proactiveness is causing an issue. Why is your proactiveness to this gender ideology so important to the people that think this is the necessity and this is the future? It's not. We're seeing these groups just fall off. You can't use the argument of, oh, they're bigots and racists and this and that. You can't just label people and insult them because they're reacting to something that you're doing when it doesn't need to be there. Because in a lot of cases, and a lot of these in the niche of video games, games don't do better when they involve these kind of concepts. The one thing that I'm confused about, if all this virtue signaling is causing large profit loss, how is it continuing to be funded? That's my question when it comes down to stuff like this.
Because nobody gives a flip about realism or masculinity or authenticity anymore. But it gets worse. So the original Six Siege had you fighting the white masks. All of the gameplay and multiplayer stuff you were doing was just to train for new terrorist threats. The white masks were one of the threats. And fighting the white mask was a pretty fun PvE game mode that they later removed from the game. Okay, fine, pretty standard stuff. But in 2020 was when Six Siege really jumped the shark. According to the official lore of Six Siege, in 2020, Angela Bassett retires and puts this cringe millennial hipster dude named Harry, and he's brought in as the new leader of Rainbow Six. That's right, this dude who looks like a barista and has a podcast about his cats is now the leader of Rainbow Six.
I think that's another issue too, is that people really want to put themselves in the game and not respect the environment that they're building. So by putting yourself and projecting yourself into these worlds, you kill the world itself, I feel like, in a lot of cases, because people are more concerned about their own representation and not concerned with the world they're building. And I think that that's you kind of lose sight of it when you're focusing on one over the other.
Bro, I can't do this. So again, you're not going to believe this junk, but this is all part of the official lore of Six Siege now. In 2020, hipster millennial Harry has the brilliant idea to take Rainbow Six, give them all airsoft guns, and turn what they do into a live competition event on stage with a bunch of cheering fans. So I'm sure huge Siege fans are like, duh, Andy, this happened a while ago. But look, I don't really follow this game or the story anymore, and so just recently found this out. I just think it's hilarious that this game is full of gay operators and girl bosses, and you aren't even fighting terrorism anymore, and you guys keep playing this slop. Can Rainbow Six get any worse? Of course it can. Osa was added in 2021 as the game's first man to put on a dress. In 2023, Tubaro was added as the first woman in the game to pretend to be a man. Guys, if you're still playing Rainbow Six Siege, it's time to call your dad on the phone and tell him that his son is gay now. I'm sorry. Rainbow Six is full of girl bosses. It's fully black girled. It's fully gay and woke as a brand now. Just go play Squad and Insurgency and Ready or Not if you want a real game. On the topic of Tom Clancy, I was chuckling recently at this terrible dialogue in The Division 2 that shows this cucked man. Watch this.
Don't be such a baby.
It hurts.
Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't have punched a wall.
Better a wall than Sarah's face.
She deserves it.
Ow!
You're fine. It's not broken. You don't even need a bandage.
Look, you left that key around my neck and you never thought to tell me what it was protecting?
Guys, why is every modern male character in video games like this? This ugly bull dyke over here is basically the man in the situation. She's the one leading. She's the one being a badass. The guy is like, owie, my fingies hurt. Ooh, where is there a big girl boss that will help me? I'm such a cuck. But guys, this is what Ubisoft has done.
I think the reality of that sentiment is the idea that there's a lot of people that believe the male vulnerability is a good thing to see. Not realizing that that doesn't really pan out well, not only in relationships, but in social situations. When male vulnerability is displayed, not only are they ridiculed and almost castrated in front of their friends and whatnot, they get bullied for the sake, and not only that's something that they have to go through their entire lives, but there's also been demonstrations in relationships where the second the male has genuinely exposed himself or became vulnerable in the relationship, the woman ended up leaving or cheating on him in reference to it was something to do with marriage therapy studies and what ended up happening should the man become a beacon of vulnerability or start living in the manner that describes a weaker human being. Now, I'm not too sure as to what peaks in the primitive brain of women. And I'm not trying to say that women are primitive. It's just that we have our biological triggers that would typically happen. But there's something that happens there that demonstrates a form of weakness in the eyes of a lot of women that isn't attractive. It's good to feel that it happens, but that doesn't transfer over to attractiveness all the time. And I think that that's kind of why you see it portrayed a lot more than it should, I think.
Again and again with their games. I actually don't even want Ubisoft to make another Splinter Cell game because they would just turn Sam Fisher into a gay, disabled black girl boss. By the way, pretty much any of the Tom Clancy stuff Ubisoft did prior to 2015 was usually pretty based. Was just playing Future Soldier tonight and it's full of Chads.
It's a big rig, that's all I'm saying.
She got that 6.7 liter V8, so I mean, I figure she's the better deal.
30. Live on a base, not a ranch. That should work.
The final game I want to talk about that captures the complete pussification we are experiencing in modern video games is 2023's 125 million pile of DEI dog shit, Immortals of Avium. Now you might look at the cover and think, okay, tough looking dude, this might be pretty masculine. Then you start the game and realize that you play as this kid. Then he starts talking and it's some of the cringiest MCU dialogue you've ever heard.
Did Caleb ever tell you his plans for this caper he's got in mind up in Topside?
I think he just likes to say caper.
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 It's a fun word.
Feels sneaky.
Target practice?
Why not?
Bro, I can't take 8 hours of dialogue that got rejected from Ant-Man and the Wasp.
That honestly wasn't too bad. I don't think that was too bad. I don't know. Maybe I'm just dialogue. Two people talking. Who gives a shit?
Part 5.
No offense, but what we do is kind of like
Pew, pew, pew.
a Magnus is like pow, bang, brrrah. I mean,
just imagine the 42-year-old.
All right, fuck. I spoke too soon, man. I spoke way too damn soon. I fucked up.
Millennial chuckling to themselves as they wrote this.
Oh man,
the kids are gonna love this.
Yeah.
Skippity. Your
toilet.
name is Jack, and the person you're following, your mentor, is this chick Luna, who is, of course, a lesbian black girl boss who you're probably secretly in love with, and she rejects you. Within the first hour of the game, she dies, and the bad guys kill her. And guys, this is not a joke. She is replaced by another lesbian black girl boss who is now giving you orders.
We're almost out of time, Jack. Sandrak attacks us from all sides, and there is no place left to run.
Like, when I tell you that liberal millennial men just have a fetish for being told what to do by black women, are you starting to see it now? Jack, the main character, is a total cuck. He has no thoughts of his own and is just doing what all these black girl bosses tell him to do.
I mean, if you looked back in 2021, you were definitely seeing a shift in a lot of interpretations and depictions of white people. Now, obviously, at the beginning of it, you're like, are they really doing this? Like, is this how we're portraying white people now? But then it became a theme, and then it became a pattern, and then people became skeptical. Like, okay, this is starting to be way too common. Why are we doing this? Because obviously the social justice warriors and their depictions became the wokeism and woke ideology that we saw later, a little later down the road. And it became nothing but it's okay to portray white people in this manner. It's like, what the hell are we doing, man? We're just having a war on a single race.
Would you believe me if I said it gets even worse, though? At about the 2-hour mark in this game, you encounter a big-backed trans woman who is also bossing you around and telling you what to do. This
Look
is
at them
not a
arms,
joke.
man.
Guys, will these companies
She got bigger arms than me.
I've never seen so much money go directly
That's
down
a
the
big
toilet
neck.
drain before. All they had to do was put a tough masculine dude in the game, put a hot chick on his arm who is maybe a damsel in distress. Done. Go and
That's kind of
print your
funny.
money.
You know, it's almost like they stuck the chest out and they're like, no, make that guy grow, make that guy a chick. And that was just like a last second change. It's kind of wild.
All right, so what should I compare Immortals of Avium with? I mean, I could really pull anything from the 2000s and it would look better by contrast. Red Faction Guerrilla, Mercenaries 2, Splinter Cell. But just because I want to talk about it, Army of Two. This game is literally like an injection of testosterone when you play it. It's just buff dudes shooting guns and saying badass stuff. Watch this cinematic and tell me this isn't the most badass thing ever.
In his farewell address to the nation, President Eisenhower left America with a strong warning. Ernest Stockwell, CEO of Security and Strategy Corporation, says that warning was misguided, and our future depends on the private military.
To fear the military-industrial complex is to fear progress. Look at the operation in Somalia. 35 U.S. soldiers dead, hundreds wounded. But not a single private contractor was injured in the operation. We outperformed the military and achieved all our objectives flawlessly.
So basically, the American government calls back its troops and forces and just says, we're going to have Tyson and Rios handle everything now.
Yeah, I actually played this one.
Could there be
this
a
one
more
wasn't bad.
badass intro to your character in a game? See, boys, games from the 2000s were all about male, masculine fantasy. We want to be the hero of the story. We want to be at the center. We want to save the women and the children and the damsels in distress. All of the women should be obsessed with us. Video games have always been about male wish fulfillment. Xbox wonders why they had to lay off 9,000 people this year. It's because you quit making video games about male fantasy and you put a bunch of gay nonsense in your games. It's as simple as that. But in closing here, I want to talk about the real reason for the pussification of video games, and it's a couple things. Number one, we let too many women into the video game industry. If you look at this chart here, women have been trending more and more liberal in America the past 20 years. And the big problem is that we have been hiring and allowing these liberal women into our hobbies. Although I love Last of Us, which came out in 2013, games like Last of Us and Life is Strange in 2014 started this whole movement of people talking about, quote, empathy in video games.
I don't think it's necessarily the political scheme. I think it's the personality that women typically bring that will shift institutions, because we're seeing it in the academic field too, where we care less about objectivity and more about moral obligation. Basically, we're more concerned about doing things that make us feel good versus pursuing academic rigor and truth through scientific means and basis. And I think that when you have that as a focus and then you apply it to different fields and how that can shift away from objectivity and criticism to more belongingness and compassion, you are going to drift towards lighter themes. Whether we want to combat that or not, that's just the case because women are natural nurturers. They're not natural harmers or of person or of self-esteem. So they're not there for that. They're not going to be the decisive or the aggressor. They're not going to be the force. And that's kind of why I think that we have a hard time depicting things like that in video games nowadays, when we have more of a feminine personality involved. That's not to say that video games can't be made by women. I think that women could be better at making different themes of video games. That's what I would say. But there is a little bit of a bleeding effect of gender roles that has impacted things like the game development process. I would say that. And I think that does those kind of traditional aspects that we've held in our society for a long time has a little bit of an impact. I think that has a little bit of effect, and maybe that's something that we don't want to acknowledge because we have over glorified the masculine success. So men doing well is what it looks like when women are doing well, even though that's not what it looks like. And we have a hard time defining the two. So everything has to move, talk, and think like a man in order to be successful, because that's the only measure. So what are we going to do? We're going to start flooding our entertainment with women that act, think, and perform like men. And now everyone's successful. Damn.
Video games are no longer about male fantasy. They're, quote, art now. Games are art and are about learning to empathize with others. People beginning to talk about video games like this 10 years ago is exactly why we're in our current predicament. Video games are not about empathy. They're not about being some trans goblin.
It's not supposed to be some incredible heartstrung story, even though some games do that very well.
Learning from people different than us. Video games that men will go out and pay $70 for have always been about one thing: male wish fulfillment. We want to be the hero. We want to be at the center. We want to blow shit up. This is our hobby, and it is our right to do that. If games will simply get back to this simple stuff, they will be successful again. But as long as Sony and Xbox keep chasing this non-existent, gender-confused female trans audience, they're going to continue to fail. All right, boys, I'm out.
So that was AndyPants' part 2. He has some points that we can't really deny. The idea that the average male gamer, or most male gamers, do feel a sigh of relief, increased interest when games don't have virtue signaling or games don't have some form of identity politics tied up in a bow regarding their hobby or the form of escapism like video games that they want to pursue. I think that that's true. And I think that a lot of people see that when they protest certain products. I mean, you see the Sweet Baby Inc. stuff on Steam. You see various games get shot down and ridiculed for involving these kinds of things simply because a common theme that I'm noticing. Now, obviously, a prelude to that is the corporate interest thing. You guys let me know what the hell's going on with corporate interests and why do they really want to drive this so hard? They're letting go whole wings of their corporate staff in order to continue this kind of messaging. Is it maybe perhaps because they had so many products in the chute and they just have to shoot them out before going back to a more successful traditional recipe that leads to actual profits, right? I mean, it's possible. I think that was the case for some movies. It's like, all right, we just have to get this was the hype. Now let's return to some more traditional themes. Because tradition works, man. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I guess when you're trying to infuse your political identity into things that don't involve it, I mean, you really think that matters that much, huh? You really think that people think like you, huh? These echo chambers are crazy. And I think that that's really where a lot of that fails, is because people get caught up in these echo chambers. So they get really confident about their perspectives, not realizing that majority of the world does not think like them, nor do they care about what they think. And so I guess that's the tinfoil hat side, is like, is this government or corporate interest, or is it both? Is government upstream from this, or is corporate interest upstream from it? You know, I don't know. I guess that's where I'm kind of off guard. But the one thing that I have learned from this more than anything is the emphasis on self-esteem and toxic compassion. This concept of toxic positivity, not being able to shoot each other's ideas down or being critical of each other in order to get down to a more objective, successful outcome, is beyond me. We got to bring back criticism to the office. We got to bring back a genuine sense of course correction, not only to the offices of game developers, but to people's homes. It just seems like no one wants to be the person to say the real thing anymore. You see that on streams, you see that in politics, you see that all over the place. And I think that that's just one of those things that's kind of bleeding over everything, for that matter, because everyone's so concerned about self-esteem and they all just want to continue this image of being liked. And it's just like, dude, you don't got to be liked by everybody. What happened to just genuinely liking yourself first and foremost? And I guarantee you that being honest and forthright, you're going to lead to that outcome a lot more times than if you just start lying and portraying something you don't actually believe into everybody, and I think that that's kind of part of the problem too. But the other thing was obviously the self-esteem emphasis, where we're keeping everybody in these infantile states, and we just want everyone to be comfortable. We don't want anyone to feel discomfort. We don't want anyone to get scared or angry or uncomfortable about any given situation. So let's just play it safe all the time. Let's just play it safe. Let's butcher our creativity. Let's butcher the lengths that we're willing to go. Let's kill our ideas of fantasy in realms of the masculine perspective. And let's just play it safe all the time, right? I think that's what's wrong with stories nowadays. Is all we have. We have a bunch of stories, and it's just all safe, light themed things that, although people can understand, it's not immersive or embracing. It doesn't catch our attention enough or catch the significance of a good story. And I think one thing that we can compare that to is a lot of the greatest authors went through a lot of hardship. Why do you think they understand the moral struggle more than these modern authors, I would say, is because they had an enduring hardship. They went through something. And I think that in developed countries nowadays, it just seems like we're so damn privileged that we don't know what true hardship is anymore. We're just bored, and it all just leads to this excess political activism. If we look at someone like J.R.R. Tolkien, and we look at Tolkien's universe and how he was able to craft that universe, and not only that, but capture the concepts of masculinity and stoicism amongst his characters. The dude was in World War I, served as like an officer of some sort. As someone that had to see or be a part of some pretty monstrous events and endure his own form of hardship, he could turn around and apply the things that he was able to conquer in his own life in story format to be able to deliver a realistic and relatable element to a fantasy that people can latch onto and be genuinely inspired by the idea of potential. I think one of the things that traditional authors captured the best was the idea of being judged by your own potential. This version of you that exists in the future that sees you as the weakness that you currently are. And there's a certain value about that relationship to know that I could be this thing. And should I try, should I tackle, should I persevere, should I sacrifice, then I would. Then I can't. And that's obviously what led to the Lord of the Rings series, the Hobbit series, and things like that. And then you have people in the modern era that think they can do better. And I think that that's why you saw the Rings of Power kind of flop the way it did. As an example, where it's like you didn't go through anything in your life, nor do you understand the general concept of hardship because you didn't really mature. It's just this constant lack of development because of this emphasis of self-esteem and toxic compassion that we can't actually deliver the hard argument or the hard conversation that needs to be had not only in meetings but in our personal sense. And I think that we're robbing ourselves of our own development when we fail at being honest with ourselves or at least honest with each other, and then allow that to evolve not only our way of thinking but who we are as people, to be able to better grasp the understanding of the world. And then we're going to be able to ship a far better story using genuine concepts instead of virtue signaling and morally posturing on something for little quick victories of our identity groups. Because I think that's also really what it is. You know, when they throw in, oh, this male character that was part of this video game that you think is masculine. Well, by the way, he's gay. Like, that's just a quick victory that leads to a long-term fall off because you lost the faith and community that previously had due to your little quick victory amongst the groups that you're trying to appease. I guess seeking some kind of political approval just is a little lost on me. I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like technology, social media, and these forms of communication have made us so hyper aware of politics nowadays. It's almost like a trend to be political. And I think we need to stop letting that bullshit bleed into our hobbies. That's just me. I think that might have a lot to do with it. That's where I'm at with that. So with that being said, thank you to everyone that watched the video. If you liked the video, like it. If you dislike it, dislike it. I apologize. It's been a little bit since our last video, but I'm kind of working on something itself. It's kind of related to this, but you're just going to have to stay tuned and hopefully it's worth it. But listen, I would love to hear y'all's comments. Not only what is your favorite genre of video games, but what do you think is happening in the video game industry as of late? with how it's been getting political, identity politics getting involved, virtue signaling, moral posturing. What is your perspective, not only on this as a problem, considering that there's a lot of video games with this element that are failing, so it is a problem to say that, to say the least. If you want to orient and blame a whole population of gamers, sure, you're right, everybody else is wrong. We can play that game, but let's not. Love to hear y'all's thoughts. So thanks again, and I'll go ahead, see you next time.